Are you here today, Jin Long? May I know, okay, Wong Shin, so Xin Shi is here? Wong Xin Shi? Xin Chi or Xin Chi? It's not here, right? All right, I have to take a while basically to check basically your guys' name there, right? Okay. So please be considered there, okay? Now, all right, this is week 7 there, right, guys? So there's around 146 students. So I think 5 of the students have been deferred or maybe are going to be withdrawn there, right? 5 or 6 students there. So the submissions that we have actually right now is only around 124 students there. Okay, 124 students that have been submitted there, right? 19 of them were not been submitted yet. Okay, including, okay, I just want to recap, okay? Atilia haven't submitted there, okay? Chi Hong, Zining, some of you guys can maybe Josephine is withdrawn, right? I just want to double check. Nathaniel also haven't submitted there. Alice, Pei, Wei Cheng, Shavin. What happened to Shavin? Do you guys have any kind of update on Shavin? All right, the number is up right now. Okay, good. Anyone know about Shavin? Class reps? What are his update status? Okay, because he told me actually, right, he actually have a positive COVID there, right? So I haven't got any kind of news after that there. Okay, you guys can check there, okay? I actually have been sending over our first brief, okay? For our first assignments over here. First project, okay? But the project is very light there, guys, okay? It's not basically including any kind of what we call that heavy kind of compositions, heavy kind of understanding on working those imaginations kind of drawings yet there, okay? And we only working with the straightforward kind of reference, okay, in order for me to see whether you guys can really develop understanding on your drawing skills or not from here. All right, so I've been looking over here from the week 5 submissions, exercise drawings there, okay. Jun Long haven't submitted yet, okay, any of these exercise yet, okay, Jun Long. All right, please resubmit and check back again, okay? Those kind of what we call examples that actually have been given to you guys there. Alice also haven't submit, right? This is all the repeat students here. Okay, thank you, Nathaniel. They're right. Okay, he said he wants to stop, but we don't know whether inform faculty. Okay. Thank you, okay, comment, all right, okay. About the information over here. So I'm going to just put as a note there first, and then I'm going to try to call basically or inform basically our Shavin is not here. So I just put absent there first. All right. So at least we actually have been put on that already. Okay, normally guys, okay, after week 10, all right, if you guys have seen actually have, if you check your attendance directly, if you seems that you actually inside the classes and you're not informed me, or you might going to miss out our attendance class, right? So make sure you inform me earlier there, okay? Because normally, right, okay, if you guys were not basically informed, okay, after 3 weeks ahead, okay, straight ahead, okay, you're not actually right inside our classroom, the system might going to be bar you from the list there, okay? So you won't be able to take those exam, I think, okay? Those are the things that happens normally there. Make sure you inform me earlier there, right? All right. And for those who have that kind of situations that you shy, or you try to ask me any question regarding to our lessons, okay, please change basically your kind of perceptions on that. Okay, you should inform me early all these kind of problems that happens, okay, around you, in order for me to take actions or take notes, and I will try to compromise, okay, the best that I can, if there will not basically have a kind of contradictions or contradict with basically, okay, our principle of learning and class, kind of we call that experience over here. Okay, so make sure that, right, you inform me, okay, whatever that you have in line, okay, that actually have difficulty to continue to develop, to 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 develop basically your skill regarding to this kind of lessons there. All right. For example, I saw some of your friends who came over here, okay, in the late kind of weeks there, right, okay, but they can actually, right, catch up with our lessons there, right, okay. So for those who actually have been here earlier there, okay, make sure that you guys actually, right, let me know there, okay. Please make myself, okay, notice on your kind of situations there, okay. So don't let basically all these kind of troubles that you have inside your mind will basically, right, okay, have those boundaries for you guys to execute your kind of projects later on, right, okay. Because as I actually mentioned to you guys before, all right, I actually have been go through, right, okay, I've been go through several times, okay, with all these kind of lessons, okay, all this course plan that we actually have been taking to you guys there, right, okay. But when I look back again to my previous kind of what we call that lesson that I actually have been to give the students, right, okay, when I actually, right, try to load, okay, in one semesters where we all these kind of informations with a lot of demonstrations there, okay, you guys can check there, okay, you guys can check, look, okay, all my previous kind of online classes sessions that I actually have uploaded in my YouTube there, okay. I've given a lot of kind of information from there, and students have been loaded with a lot of what we call the exercise and also assignment kind of works there, right? But the outcome basically, okay, it all depends on who actually have that kind of package of learning experience and understanding on from that kind of perspective of drawings there, okay, who will be succeeded, okay. So some of the students who did not basically, they, right, would not basically have that kind of privilege, okay, to understand about how to develop their skills there. They are going to be either fail, or they're going to be drop out, or they might going to what we call the frustrated, okay, not actually engaged enough, okay, with our lessons over here, okay. And they don't want to speak out, and they don't want to explain, okay, why, until they get those results. So that's not basically an healthier kind of way there, okay. And I would thankfully most of you guys there, right, okay, because you guys would be most of you guys would be very, very productive on submitting and also sharing basically your kind of progress and works there, right. So thank you very much for everyone there, okay, who actually have been what we call that committed, okay, with our exercise over here. So we are going to continue, and also this time basically, even though we're taking further into the projects, but it doesn't mean it basically in the phase of practice there, okay, in the phase of developing the, okay, your kind of skills there. Because when I actually take a look back again in several kind of semesters there, okay, when we actually focus a little bit more further on those theoretical basically, okay, and also develop that kind of a lot of information that we give a lot of information to the student, okay, student seems doesn't develop the skills really well there. And one of the poor thing happens directly with the students there, they don't remember what they've learned. All right, those are the things that happens there, okay. They don't remember what they've learned there, okay, and they don't know how to comply back again with the lessons that have been developed there, right, from there. And one of the saddest thing that I actually saw there, okay, the student still doesn't know how to draw. That's basically one of the saddest thing that happens there, right? Okay, the student still doesn't know how to draw there, right? So we want to recap back again what we actually have been go through, and actually have been speed up a little bit kind of my time, okay, on last week, because of my kind of data connection will not basically stable there, right? So I'm going to recap back again what actually have been go through before, okay, on week 6 there basically, right? So I have to record the sessions, right? So right now, okay, for week 6 there, right, okay, I did actually give you guys, where is it? I didn't post over here, right? Okay, go back to week 5 there, right? Okay, so here, guys. Okay, with from basically this kind of what we call that sample that I actually give you guys over here. Okay, we're talking about, okay, all the uses of those tablets, okay, the technologies that we have, how to develop the basic human structures there, right? And I did not basically have enough time basically to explain a bit more further how to develop that kind of understanding when they come to see those reference and develop back again into the form of shapes there, right? Okay, so that's basically the thing that we're actually lagging out, right? Okay, so I want to go back into that kind of exercise before we're going to do our assignments. Okay, you guys have 2 weeks, all right, 2 weeks to complete this kind of assignments there, okay, this kind of project, okay. They call drawing human figures and basic character design there, right? Okay, so what I mean by basic character design, okay, the mean is, okay, before we're going to draw these human figures, we're going to develop the basic structure there first. All right, so the submissions are not going to be from drawing or tracings only, okay, on those references there. You must be able to bring out, okay, you must be able to develop the form of structures that define basically those kind of models or reference there, okay. So normally when we design the basic character design or character design itself, okay, we're going to start with all these basic structures at first. And the main kind of what we call the reason I give this kind of project and a part of those exercise at the same time, because I want the student basically are going to be learn to figure out how going to redraw using digital tools for it. Okay. And as a part of it, you're going to develop your understanding there, okay, on improving your drawings and illustration skills. Okay, at least I want the students actually know how to improve their drawing skills. All right, other than you just draw and trace, or maybe you're going to go back into your old habits of drawings there, okay. That's basically one of the painful things that I always saw when some of the students show me their how they visualize the ideas, right? Okay, so because they don't know how actually to figure out how to develop the right kind of quality of drawings, so they just seems to draw something from what they thought in their mind, right? Okay, in order to develop their own kind of way to visualize things. All right, so that's basically one of the reasons I give this kind of this first assignments we call project one there, right? Okay, because we want to develop more on our understanding to use the tools there, right? Okay, in the right way. That's basically the first thing there, right? Okay, the main objective there, right? Okay, so it's not basically about you complete all the assignments and you can close the book there, because the what we call that the main kind of events basically are going to be in our third projects. All right, the second projects, okay, that I want to give you guys some examples over here. All right, the second project that we're going to work are going to be, I don't know whether you guys can see from here or not, right? Okay, is to draw animal anatomies and maybe a cute animal character design. All right, we're going to draw human first, and then we're going to draw what we call that animals there, okay, anatomies of animals there, okay, because there's two different characters there, okay. We need to develop those understanding there. Other than you going along the way, you're going to learn also about the compositions there later on before we're going to work with our third project there, right? Okay, third project, right? Okay, we're going to combine all these two elements together. Okay, and I'm going to give you guys some specific kind of themes, and you're going to work on that kind of themes based on these two different kind of elements. Maybe you're going to use three different elements there: natures, humans, and animals there. Okay, those are the things there. So all this kind of exercise, all these kind of projects were going to be related as usual there, but I did not basically are going to be used the old kind of way of working with the assignments, okay, which is the previous kind of assignment that I actually have been developed for almost 9 or 10 years, okay, where I actually write inside this university there, okay. We kind of give the student to develop a children's book illustrations there. Even though basically that project is quite very useful, but they are not going to be give a good beneficial for the multimedia student there, okay. One of the reasons, not because they're not beneficial in America, but in terms of developing the skills there, they are not going to be beneficial for the skills there, okay. And knowledge, yes, there, okay, but the skill is there, okay, because we always keep on seeing the student actually, right, okay, multimedia student especially, okay, they won't be able to visualize things really well there, right? Those are the things that I find from there, right? Okay. So that's why, okay, from this kind of we call that projects, okay, hopefully you guys will develop a bit more understanding first. When we construct all this kind of reference, okay, this is basically all 6 pictures that you're going to use, the guys. Okay, this is all 6 pictures that you guys going to use there, right? Okay, so the marks are going to be given based on how actually develop a kind of understanding. I'm going to show you guys how it works from here. Okay, how actually you're going to submit and develop your drawings. Okay, that's the first thing. All right, guys. So you have these 6 pictures, okay. It doesn't mean that you just trace them and submit them, right? Okay, we are going to break down these form of poses, of the human poses, into multiple kind of shapes there first. Okay, gestures and shapes there, okay, before you're going to work with those kind of detailing there. All right, so I'm going to break down into 3 different kind of what we call that breakdowns over here. Okay, let me check here first. All right, we have the reference. All right. For example, over here, okay, the size will be given around how many? All right, 8 by 11 inch. Okay, but I'm going to use basically around 250 dpi, right? Okay, 250 dpi this time there, okay? For each kind of submissions there, 250 dpi there, okay? Let me double check. Yes, 250 dpi, okay, for this project there, right? Because normally in exercise we're using how many? 150 there, right? Now we increase into 250 dpi, but not close to, not basically right 300 pi yet, right? Okay? Because one of the reasons is because I want you guys to have that kind of feel of understanding, okay? If we increase the resolutions, the size of those brushes also going to be increased while we do those kind of standard kind of drawings there, right? Okay. And you're going to submit in JPEG format. At the same time, okay, all artwork are going to be in grayscale tone. I'm going to show you guys also a bit how actually we're going to develop those kind of what we call that shadings by using different kind of brushes there, okay? By using different kind of brushes there, right, this time. So the deadline going to be 2 weeks in times, okay? Week 7 to week 8, all right? In 15 July 2021 there, okay? You're going to submit that. But I want to see your progressions there, your progress within these 2 weeks there in our practical class, okay? So for those who actually have checked basically this brief, you guys can start to practice yourself there in order to work on that, okay? In order to work on that, all right? So let me check over here. Wang Xinqi is not here, right? Okay. So we're not here. Basically, I assume basically, okay, the student did not exist there, right? Okay. All right. Okay, close this one. All right, guys. If you take a look right now, right, all these kind of reference and samples, right? This is something that you guys can use as a part of the guide, okay? If we take a look at this one, okay, this is a Homer Simpson from the Simpson kind of character designer, okay? I just want to give you guys a brief a little bit there, okay? So if you take a look all these kind of creations that we developed, okay, all these character creations, okay, they came from all the basic shapes there, all right? They came with all this kind of basic shape there, guys, okay? So if you want to start to design a characters later on in the future there, okay, please make sure you develop this kind of basic structures there first. All right, this basic structure first before you're going to design any kind of characters there, okay? That's why these lessons, this week kind of developments, okay, were really important there, guys, okay? So even though you want to design this manga kind of characters, okay, from this one of the patron kind of what we call the submissions there, okay? So if you check it closely, okay, all this kind of design work came from the basic human structures there, okay, the basic form there right itself there, right? Okay, so there is no such thing that you guys will draw something, okay, without having this kind of understanding there first, okay? So this is how actually we develop our imaginations kind of drawings there. Before we're going to start those kind of imagination drawings there, again, you must be able to understand how to develop the shape itself, right? So that's basically the lessons are going to be right here. So if you take a look right now, okay, I have this one sample, okay? I draw one sample of those reference over here, right? Paste this, okay, this reference there, okay? Because without reference, of course, you won't be able to develop the right kind of understanding there, right? Okay? So what I'm going to do right here, okay, I'm going to break down first this reference into multiple kind of shapes there. Okay, I'm using a 3/4, what we call it, side profile kind of images right here, and I'm going to change into different colors there, okay? It works on that. If you take a look closely there, okay, a lot of people always, okay, begin to draw like this one there, right? Huh? Can you see, right? Someone actually still draw like this one there, right? Okay, outline there. All right, outline there, right? They kind of draw all the things using outline there, right? So this is not basically the right way for you guys to develop your skills, right? Some people will still draw like this one there, right? When they have those reference with them, right? This is also not the right way for you guys to start to improve your drawing skills there. Okay. In order to develop this kind of understanding, first of all, you need to understand how to develop the shapes of the human structures, or using basically the basic form of shapes, okay, to develop that kind of understanding there first, okay? Because otherwise, okay, if you don't understand about how to develop the right kind of shapes, for example, like this one, right? You won't be able to develop the kind of imaginary kind of understanding to develop your own characters later on, okay? Because every single character that you're going to develop there, okay, they start with this kind of basic structures there, right? Okay, so if you want to take a look right here, okay, all these kind of characters, it came from the silhouette of shapes there. How to work on that, okay? Okay, by using these technologies nowadays, easy for us to develop a kind of understanding, okay? So let's just say I'm using these gradient maps, right? Grayscales, all right? Okay, right here. I can actually break down a little bit over here, make it into silhouette. Okay, let me break down there first, guys. I want to make it into a silhouette. Right? It seems I cannot use this one there first. It's hard for me to use this one there. Right? So how actually I'm going to use it? Can I use threshold? Yeah, it's more easy to write the threshold. Right? All right, if we take a look closely over here, all right, I break down into a silhouette, right? The shape itself there. Right. If you want to take a look nicely, okay, about the shape, how to develop that kind of understanding here. Right. Break down every single thing that you develop, okay, you saw basically right now into a shapes there, right? Okay, into a shapes there. Okay, from here, you will to develop that kind of the right kind of strong poses for each character that you want to develop later on. All right. Okay, for example, over here, there, right? Okay, you have this kind of shapes of silhouette there. Okay, can I actually check a look right here? Every single character that been working on, that been developed right here. Okay, from the ideas that you've been developed there. Okay, they came from this. Sorry, there, right? Okay. Came from the shapes there, right? Shape itself. Okay. You must be able to look every single element that you're going to draw into these shapes there first. Okay. In my time, basically, right, okay, it's hard for us to, we have to use our imaginations there to develop that kind of understanding. Okay, but nowadays, we have that kind of privilege, right? You have basically this kind of technologies for me directly, especially me directly, to show the student how basically an artist basically are going to be a look into those elements that they want to draw there first. Right? You must be able to see the whole structure that you're going to develop into the shapes there first, okay? If you learn from the introduction to art directing, we call it a positive shape directing that show basically the space, right? So you must be able to transform your kind of imaginations inside your head. When you look at the reference right here into the shapes there, transform them into the shapes there, okay? Into a silhouette shape, okay? This is the only way basically you guys will have the total kind of control on your kind of reference, right? So learn to apply that kind of imaginative kind of understanding by transform whatever subject that you want to draw into this particular kind of silhouette or shapes inside your mind over here, right? That's how you actually can take a look more deeply how actually going to transform from this reference into your own illustration or drawings directly. You guys can actually redraw back again directly, other than moving your tools in the right way directly. Okay? So this is the first that you're going to develop directly. Any single kind of reference that you have here. Don't take a look from all these kind of difficulties there first. All right. Take a look at how actually you're going to transform these images here into a silhouette of shapes there. Okay. That's how actually you're going to transform them back again, right, into the shapes there, okay? And of course, from here, basically, we can actually turn over into that kind of we call, all right, and I'm going to say basically the right, the Gestalt theory there, right? Okay. Let me check those kind of my kind of notes over here. All right. Sorry there, guys. Let me get back to it right here. All right, the Gestalt theory basically, okay, is all about how to read, okay, on the subject matter itself, okay, and look into the space there, okay. If you check look at the space that actually define the structures, okay, of your characters, for example, there, okay. For example, like this one, okay, these images, okay, if you saw basically from these images, okay, you can't actually imagine what basically the subject matter is there, okay. But of course, okay, if you take a look closely from this subject matters here, right, okay, there's a dog over here, okay. There's a dog over here, right, inside here, right. This is basically the dog, right, okay. So they use basically, okay, a space, okay, to define from negative and positive space to define basically the structures of these subject matters over here, right, okay. So this is basically what we are going to look into, okay. You applying every single element that you saw into the shape itself, right? Okay? That's basically how actually you define your subject matters before you're going to draw them. Before basically you're going to draw them, right? Okay? Don't look into those kind of difficult layman, basically, okay? Normal people who doesn't learn and develop that kind of studies in design, they will basically are going to be defined something that we call difficulty there, okay? Oh, there's a lot of things that we have to look into. We cannot actually focus, okay, on which area that you're going to start first to look into before you're going to develop a kind of understanding that the studies itself, okay? But if you really want to focus on what you're going to do first, okay, you transform every single element that you saw from here into the shapes that first. That's why I choose all this kind of reference, okay, to give you guys some understanding there, okay, how to define all these kind of shapes and space depth, okay? And every single element that you saw right here, they define basically the basic structures of shapes itself, okay? To develop kind of what we call that, the whole kind of compositions in the right way. So if you look into difficulties, yes, okay, that's a normal kind of what we call that reaction from a lot of people, okay? But if you take a look into different kind of way there, okay, to approach your understanding, okay, you will define everything into the shape itself at first, okay? And of course, from that kind of shapes, kind of what we call the studies, okay, You will define also the alignment that define all these kind of characters that can first, right? To before you're going to draw them there, right? So for example, like this one there, right? Okay. If you check into the shapes, of course, okay, the whole elements, the poses that you're going to draw there, okay, and how actually you're going to define and measure them out, okay. You check look closely back, okay. Okay. This is basically alignment, okay, the measurement between, okay, the head. I think graceful is it? All right, between the head alignments and also this part there, okay. So break down every single element here, all right, into different kind of measurements there. And that's how actually you're going to define basically your own structures before you're going to develop. Look into all this kind of element into one single boxes there, right? Right. Define them, the whole kind of alignment there. You must be able to see that, because some people love to basically, okay, to do this kind of exercise a bit more kind of like systematic there, okay, but that kind of exercise, oh, I'm not saying it's not good there, okay, but you're going to commit yourself, okay, to develop only that kind of methods of working, but without having enough kind of time to improvise the thing that you saw. Because a lot of people, they like a robot, okay, when they learn one single kind of what we call that lessons to develop the kind of understanding, okay, the methods there, okay, they're going to use only that kind of particular methods only for that specific kind of exercise, for example, okay. They don't actually know how to improvise from there. They don't actually, right, try to observe a little bit more further how actually develop a kind of understanding. But this is what we call how to apply the alignment directly on your works there, right? And the measurement at the same time, right? Okay. But the measure, we're not actually using rulers there, okay, but using basically this kind of boxes of line there, okay, to develop our understanding over here. So from here, if you check, look, okay, oh, if you want to draw something later, okay, this basic structure, this head basically are going to be a bit more further. They're going to have the diagonal kind of line over here, okay, to define basically the whole information of this, what we call that poses there, okay. So from this kind of diamond kind of shapes there, okay, you will define basically the form, the forces that have been developed from these poses there, okay. So it's not all about to trace and draw as realistic that you can there, okay, first there, okay. It's all about to understand about the compositions that the poses there, okay, that define the whole structures before you're going to draw them, okay. You must be able to look into all these kind of elements, all these kind of measurements, all these kind of methods that is before you're going to draw them. Okay, what basically the relevant between this kind of sample of works with what we're going to do later on there, okay. So for example, over here, have you saw some people actually, right, can draw something like this, okay, when they want to start to do some sketches there, okay, they start to develop this kind of what we call that drawings over here. They kind of like draw, right, for example, like this one, right? Okay. If you saw some people actually draw like this one, right? Not only me, right? But some people actually draw like this one. Anyone had seen this kind of drawings before, other than mine, right? You saw some people actually, right? Okay, some artists basically draw this kind of basic structures like this, without any details yet. Have you seen before, right? Okay, people actually define the structures first like this. We call it dashes line, right? Before they get to add some details there. So if you seems have to see, okay, a lot of people draw something like this, right? Okay? And sometimes they are going to start with this kind of line works also the same there, what we call that the line of actions there, right? The line, okay, of actions there. Before they're going to be developed the kind of understanding on those kind of drawings there, okay? It can be there, right? Okay? So all these kind of methods basically are going to be useful later on if you want to add some detail in it. No one basically, except some professional kind of artists, they're going to start to draw the whole thing without having this kind of basic structures kind of line. But I believe none of you guys can draw like that. So that's why the only reason why you can draw there, okay, like you just simply draw something without any kind of sketches, because our exercise that we did basically before is only want to have what we call some understanding to draw something like this. Okay, I actually teach you guys or taught you guys and show you guys how to draw something like this based on the reference that only. Okay, without any reference, I don't think that you can draw like this one there, right? Okay, without any reference there. Okay, without any reference, you won't be able to draw something like this there, okay? You won't be able there. That's why these lessons basically is all about break down back again the shapes before you could add some detail in there, okay, on your kind of submissions there. I would say no one can draw imagination drawing like this without any reference there. That's why from this time, okay, when we want to develop some things, I want you guys to define first about the line of actions there, okay, before we're going to work with the kind of drawings there. The first step that you should define based on the reference here there, okay, so define the line of actions there, okay, when you draw those. How to define this one there, okay, the line of actions for this one, okay. In particular, the line of actions came from, okay, the poses that define the structures of any character that you're going to draw later on, okay. We don't want to draw something that a little bit more static only, except model sheets there, okay, except model sheets there, okay. So what do you mean by model sheets here? Okay. Model sheet, this is the one, okay. This is what we call model sheets there, okay. So when we design the characters, normally as a character designers, they're going to draw all these kind of model sheets, and after that they're going to design some of the posts there, okay, to give the suggestions to animators there, to work with it. All right, so as character designers, okay, if you really love anime, manga, whatever cartoon very much, okay, if you can draw one single post, don't be lazy there, okay, because why? Because they're not going to define whether you're going to become a very good kind of character designers or not. All right, anyone can draw something from one single poster, okay, but when we design, when we act as a character designers that in the futures, you must be able to understand how to develop one single characters in multiple kind of posts. So to develop that kind of understanding, you must be able to develop first the strong core understanding how to develop the basic structures for your design. There, right? Okay. So I want to break down a little bit more. Okay, this is basically one of the criteria when you want to sketch out your ideas over here. Okay, you develop the whole characters into multiple kind of pose there, multiple kind of expression at the same time there, right? That's how people actually develop that kind of understanding. So there's a lot of tons of work there, guys, okay, in order for you to develop a character designer. It's not basically only one single task there, okay, but for these lessons, I want us basically, okay, to develop the kind of understanding of how to develop and define the whole structures right here. Okay, how actually I look at things, okay. Some people have different kind of methods like, of working, okay. But what I want to show you guys how to define the shapes of the human face over here. They came from all these kind of shaped circles there. All right, break down into one circle like this, and I'm going to break down into. You see this kind of shape there, okay? But it's not basically the curved line that we want to draw, okay? Draw the triangles there first. Triangles. This, what is called neck there, okay? They came from that cylinders there, right? Or triangle that have been what we call that morph or what we call that bend a little bit into this kind of shapes over here, all right? From side profile. The alignment between eyes and nose are going to be the human ears there. All right. So from here, where basically the center point, okay, this is basically the center point of the human face from side profiles. And you guys see there, right? Okay, we call the center point there, right? Now, if you want to define the shapes of the eyes itself and the ears there, okay, and the mouth, okay, the nose there, okay, the nose are going to be from the size of the nose, basically, will define from the size of those ears there, okay. You to measure the shape itself, right? And this is basically using triangles over here, the nose, break down into the shapes, okay. Take a look carefully, okay. And the lips, the mouth and the lips, okay, you use another triangle that would. But from here, the alignment that define these kind of measurements are going to be a bit more diagonal right here to define the shapes of those. Define the right kind of measurement in angle and alignment of the nose and the ear and the mouth directly. So you must be able to use this kind of measurements here, the shapes of those. Nose and eyes are going to be right here, this kind of alignment there, okay? So if you take a look about the ears there, okay, how to define the shapes of ear, don't define the shape of ear like this, lah. Break down into this hexagon kind of shapes there, right? The shapes of the ears there. Memorize them and practice them at the same time. All right. The eyes from this side, okay, from side profiles there. I want to show side profiles at first because it's easy for us to understand, okay? These are going to be your eyeball there, right? Okay. There's something around this big, okay, maybe, okay? And the shapes of the eyes were not going to be looked like this. Okay, they're going to be a diagonal shapes a little bit there, right? Yeah. You guys see here? I'll have to show you guys in different colors there, right? Okay, diagonal a little bit there, right? Shapes there. Triangle, but diagonal a little bit there, right? The lips itself from here also, using this kind of breakdown shapes here. The nose, the shapes of the nose, okay, using one circles, two circles from side profiles, and you can define those shapes of the nose. The ears from here, then you break down the shapes there, right, okay, into this part there, okay. Make a simplified kind of shapes there, okay? Look into how actually I developed them. Okay. Break down a little bit, right? This is how you define them. The shapes of human being. Before you're going to design and develop that kind of line drawing. Most people cannot get it right. Why? Because they don't actually develop the right kind of confidence on their line at first. They don't practice that right. I didn't actually draw the whole thing in a more appropriate way already. So because I want to speed up my time a bit here. Of course, 2 hours is not enough there, right? So now, the center point there, okay, from side profile right here. So the ears are going to be back on the center point, right? The eyes are going to be, okay, we have a few space over here there, okay, to define the eyes. Right, and the eyebrows are going to be right here. The nose, the lips there, okay. If you want to draw the lips a bit more the lower lips is more bigger than the upper lips there, okay. It depends on individual kind of what we call the understanding there, okay, or the structures of the human face, okay. But if you look closely on your own face, you will saw basically, okay, this is basically the logic kind of understanding on the alignment itself there, right? Okay. So make sure you understand first the whole structures over here, okay, before you're going to draw the characters here. So you have to define all these elements first before you're going to submit your kind of drawings there, okay. So this is basically the breakdown of understanding, okay, using the shape itself there, right? So from here there, okay, save the files there first. I want you guys to break down first the shape itself, okay, before you're going to compile and draw them back there, okay. And of course, okay, from this profiles over here, how to define basically the shape itself there, okay. A lot of people draw like this one, right? But they don't know basically what basically this kind of shapes are going to be used for, okay. They just simply draw them like this one, okay. So of course, okay, from this particular kind of shapes of hands there, okay, if you take a look closely, the arm itself what came from, okay, this part basically we break into 1, 2, 3 there, okay. Okay, our arms itself, okay, basically are going to be in the same measurement. Most of it is going to same measurement, okay. Our arms, our hands, okay, bicep, okay, and arms a bit kind of, they're going to have a similar kind of measurement there, right? So how actually going to work on that? Okay, this one is the shoulder blade there, okay. Before the shoulder blade, you can actually adjust the shapes of it, right? Okay? From here, break down into the shoulders there. The shoulder blades over here there, okay. The shape itself, the line of action that define them, okay. How actually we're going to define the line of actions over here? It came from, so this is basically the line of actions that define the asset shapes, define the form of these subject matters there. So from here, if you take a look closely there, okay, to break down a bit, okay, the shape is okay, from this particular kind of chairs, okay, and also the body itself there, okay, they break into 2 different kind of shapes there, okay. 2 different kind of shapes there, okay. The hips and so the shoulders there. They define the form itself there, right? So how actually going to break down there, right? Okay? The more easiest way you guys can break down into this kind of shapes there, right? Triangles over here. From here, right? See? It's a square basically. It's not triangle. It's a square. Break down a little bit there, right? The shape itself there, right? Of course, okay. This part basically they combine. If you're going to go into details, they're going to combine with the circle there, okay. Combined with the circle shapes that are over here, and the shoulders itself, okay, are going to be defined with this kind of oval or circle kind of shapes there, right? Okay, so define this kind of elements over here. So everything that you develop right here, study, okay, you must be able to break down into this kind of shapes here first. Okay, so I can break down into 3 different kind of shapes there, okay, in order to make the whole kind of what we call that directions of this kind of studies are going to be a bit more practical directly, because normally, okay, this part we can actually bend it over there, right? Okay, we can bend it over there, right? Same goes to this part, okay? Human kind of what we call that structures from the above kind of what we call that body part, okay? They're going to can be bent over a little bit, okay? They're more flexible there. That's why when we design the characters, we must be able to develop the kind of exaggeration in the same time, okay? Exaggerate the shape itself, right? So from here, without the reference or with the reference, I can define basically the cylinder shape that came cross over to this part there, right? Okay. The joining is okay. Why we actually develop the circles, okay? Because they define the joining there, okay? And we kind of draw another kind of cylinders over here, define the shapes of this arm there, right? Okay, and of course, again, the circles over here define the shapes of those, the joint, okay, the ankle there, okay, what we call that, the wrist, okay, of our movements there, okay, of the human being there, okay. So from here, a lot of people always have that kind of very difficulty to define the shape itself there, okay. For me, okay, I'm going to define the shape into the boxes there. Boxes break down later on into different kind of cylinders there. 1, 2, 3. all right? Our fingers there, okay? Okay, our thumb are going to be around 1 and 2, all right? Our thumb there, okay? Fingers down there, okay? 2 there, okay? So another fingers over here, you guys cannot see from here there, right? Because of the reference there, but this is how actually I'm going to define the shapes of those fingers there. Right? Define the shapes of it there first. Don't just simply draw, trace them, but you don't actually understand how to define the shape there, right? Okay. From here, okay, there's going to be the shoulder blade and also the joining there, okay, from here. So from here, basically, okay, I'm going to break down into another cylinders there, right? This one, right? The joining there, okay, and I define into another cylinders there. The cylinders were not going to be in the same kind of sizes there, okay? They're not going to be look like this one there, right? They're going to be have different kind of sizes there, all right? If from this part, okay, this one will be more bigger than this one there, okay, the size itself, right? So you must be able to see those kind of different shapes, kind of understanding to develop those kind of arms or maybe legs there later on there, okay? And of course, okay, if you look how actually I draw them here right now, all right? I have this kind of confidence of line there, okay? I'm using Ultimate Ink brushes to work with it, okay? Check, look over here, the shapes of these hands. This is circle, okay? This is very invisible kind of shapes there, okay? That define basically the wrist there, okay? The joining there, okay? If you check look right now, how actually I define basically the shapes over here. I'm using basically cylinders to work with it. All right, the cylinders there, right? Okay, to work with the fingers itself. To study that carefully there, okay, before you're going to redraw them. And of course, okay, from here we can break down into another parts there, okay, in order to develop a kind of movements of these hands later on, okay. So all these kind of studies, anatomy and understanding, okay, roughly you must be able to develop that kind of what we call that studies of these drawings there first before we're going to define all these kind of details there. I don't want you guys just to draw them, trace them, but you not try to define and break down the shape itself, because this kind of studies, right, it takes basically a multiple kind of exercise there to work. And of course, okay, if you take a look closely right now, all right, before you're going to finalize them next week there, right, okay, this week's everyone should study basically how to break down the shapes there first by using a reference. Okay, by using a reference there, right, okay. In our lecturing class later on, in our practical class later on, I'm going to try to break down a bit more details on maybe your faces there first, and then legs, arms there, okay. And I will basically going to be what we call that. I will basically explain a bit more further on this on illustrations drawings there, okay. How actually I break down each single kind of elements there first, okay, into the shapes. Okay, and then you guys can actually take a look in each different kind of classes there, okay. Maybe I'm going to define a certain specific kind of what we call that studies there, okay. And of course, okay, and the other thing that you have to remember, all of you guys, the way that you develop that kind of line works when you start to sketch, they will give also the important kind of rules there, okay, because a lot of people, guys, okay, I will see some people will draw like this one later on. They're going to draw like this. I don't know why they actually draw like this one there. I don't want to see this kind of drawing, guys, okay, please. This is not basically a doodle kind of line classes, okay. When you draw there, okay, check look how actually I move my hands over here to break down there, okay. So this one basically the shapes of, I think, triangles there. The triangle shapes over here. Basically they came from boxes there, right? Okay, study them, right? Okay, study them, right? Okay. And then I'm using a circle line over here. Can you see how actually I draw them there, guys? I'm repeat the line a little bit, and then they're going to be cylinders over here. See? Cylinders over here. Can you see the drawing line that I actually produced right here, there, guys? It's all about that. It's not all about studying only there, okay, to define the shapes, but the way that you conduct the shapes there, okay. And I'm going to draw basically the circle shapes over here to define the anchor point, the joining there, okay, on the knee pad. And then I'm going to break down the shapes over here, okay, the cylinders itself, there, right? You see how actually I draw them, guys? Repeat the line a bit there, right? To define the tie there, okay? At the tie, also the legs. And then this is the anchor point, the shape itself that define basically the whole structures of these. Foot there, right? Okay, the foot itself there, right? Okay. So define them first before I'm going to add those kind of detailing there. Same goes to the side over here. Right? Cylinders there, shapes of the cylinders there. Right? You see the way that I draw that right now there, guys? Practice these kind of drawings. We're talking about how to develop your drawing skills. Okay? Not only to trace there, okay, to draw them there, okay, the shapes there. This is not basically, it's an easy task, okay, that you guys saw from here. The cylinder shape from here. They define basically the legs there, right? And then the anchor point, the ankle there, okay, join there, okay, and then the shape that define from here. Okay, I break down a little bit there, right? Before I'm going to study a bit more details there. It's going to be difficult for you guys to execute in the first time, okay, but if you have developed that kind of understanding on the structures, okay, several times, you will understand later on, okay, how it works there. But the first thing, okay, the quality of those drawings that will define this kind of task. That's how actually you got that. That's one of the things that I want to see from your submissions, okay, for this week. I don't want you guys to draw any details yet. I want you guys to break down the shapes into this particular kind of drawing line and strokes there. Why actually I keep on using this kind of methods there, right? If I want to design any kind of characters there later on, okay, I'm going to start with this kind of drawings, guys. See, I try to memorize back again what actually I have been done before with my kind of what we call the studies just now. There, right? So right now, I have that kind of understanding from what I saw just now. I try to memorize them back and using my kind of reference there, my kind of understanding there to work with it. Can you see the drawing, the gestures line that I produced right now there, guys? That came from structure that I draw there, right? So from here, I'm sketching a little bit more further there, okay? I love to draw, okay. I want to define the shape itself over here. So let's just say that I want to draw something a bit more like a robot, right? Okay. So I'm break down everything into shapes here. Break down into shapes there first. There. So when you talk about designing characters, there, right? Talking about how to define those character works there. So first of all, when you into design the characters there, you're not actually just simply trace from other people's work there, guys. So what you're going to do, okay, you break down every single shape that you're going to produce, and you're going to develop them later on into your own design there. We're talking about how to develop your own design here. So this is basically the process that you have to work first when you design the characters. Define basically the shape itself there, right? So we're not talking about draw the finished product here. Okay, we're talking about how to develop that kind of ideas there first. This is what a lot of people have, that kind of difficulties there, guys. They doesn't know how to develop the ideas from here. So and then they don't actually understand how to develop that kind of understanding here, how to define the whole structures of their creations. So take a look right now. Okay, I try to sketch out roughly my ideas based on this cyborg or robot kind of design there. We're not talking about basically how detailed it can be, but the rough idea that we can develop from here, guys. So you using basically your reference and of course your imaginations at the same time. So over here, if I want to redraw them, this kind of elements, using what we call that shapes there, guys. Okay, developing everything using the shapes there. So I'm going to change a bit there, right there. The foot there, right? The footwork there. So roughly we have that kind of ideas here. Okay, rough ideas on the robot or cyborg design, basically whatever that we want to design first, using basically the reference that we have from here. Right. So even though the process of working basically right now, guys, okay, we're not basically only this kind of particular kind of way of working there, guys, okay. Yes, Jahui? What is it you want to ask there, right, Jahui? Jerry, do you have any questions there? No questions? Do you raise your hand just now there, Jahui? All right. Okay, so far, guys, do you have any questions there before I go to continue them back? Sir, you draw the line very straight. Oh. Okay, one of the reasons there, guys, okay, we can draw all those kind of line there, okay, very straight, because we practice our line back again. All right. Okay, we practice our hands there again. That's basically one of the criteria of this exercise again. We're not actually, I'm not looking into the final look of these drawings are going to be as perfect that you want to be there right now. So the things that I want us basically to develop there first, okay, is how to develop back again okay, to improve back again our drawing line there, okay. That's basically what we're going to do, okay, because a lot of people say, guys, okay, I saw a lot of my students basically still have this kind of difficulties there, okay, to develop that kind of understanding how to construct basically the line works, the process of sketching there, okay, before they go into final set. A lot of people always look into the final works there, okay. A lot of people always look into the final work. You guys have to remember one thing, guys. Next semesters, you're going to have a digital illustration classes. That illustration classes, if you not actually seems to develop the right kind of methods there, skills there first, to sketch your ideas like this, not design the robot, okay, but sketch the guys, the line work that you produce right now. You cannot actually define the right kind of line works there, okay. The things that we're going to learn about illustration, digital illustration later on are going to be same as you learn image manipulations. You just only use those applications, use some of the effects to work, but to develop the right kind of ideas there, because in multimedia there, you will be experienced to develop an animations character designer, okay, 2D animations there for specifically there, okay, without 3D first, okay. So when we talk about all this kind of learning experience there, okay, let me actually write, I'm going to use basically, okay, the canvas size I'm going to change into 16 there, right. I have to break down a little bit there, okay, because I want to show you guys the difference here. If you take a look here there, okay, the drawing itself, okay, that I try to produce. We're not talking about my design here right now, even though I'm using basically to give you guys some sort of ideas there, okay, how actually you're going to develop the ideas from here. But one of the things that I want you guys to focus first, guys, focus how to construct the right kind of line. That's why we go through with the last week exercise there, okay, to draw the horses, right. I can see a lot of people basically have that kind of good understanding to use the tools, okay. So we practice to use the tools there, okay, to work on that. Because I find out that, guys, okay, if we actually focus a lot of things there, okay, a lot of things, okay, in one semester, okay, especially in the subject, okay, I would say that, okay, the knowledge and experience that you're going to gain are going to be mixed up all together, but you cannot actually have the right kind of taste, specific taste to develop the kind of understanding there first. Basically, the core important things that you should improve before you're going to apply all this kind of theoretical of element and principle of design together, all right, okay, together there, okay, in your design works, right? Because students have been developed, because I believe that introduction to art, you have been exposed with a lot of this theoretical kind of informations there, right? Okay. And of course, they're going to combine also with some of the exercise and assignment that you've been done there, right? But I would believe that you cannot actually, because that subject matters, they cannot define basically the specific kind of learning experience that students actually have been improving, okay? Because back in the day in my China, okay, we have a very long hours to develop our skills. But nowadays, when it comes to technologies, okay, when we actually have been combined with technologies there, okay, a lot of people try to take a very shortcut way to learn multimedia there, right, okay? And I'm not saying it's not good, but in the long run, all right, if you're not actually focused on this core kind of understanding there, right, okay, especially, right, okay, when you talk about drawing itself there, right, okay, this is basically maybe a little bit complicated there, okay, but I actually have been showing you guys also a lot, okay, all this time, okay, this kind of problems there. What if you want to design a character based on the simple shapes like this one, right? Circles there, right? Draw the circles there, right? Okay, what kind of character that you want to draw from here? Let's just say the same kind of characters, but can you see how actually I draw them, okay? In a little bit more like simple kind of way there. right? Okay, a chibi style, for example, there, okay. But from here, basically, okay, we have a lot of process that you have to do there, okay. But I just want to show you guys one of those, okay. Measurement between this one has to be the same there, guys, okay. This one has to be balanced as well at the same time there, right? For example, here, and you see how actually I draw this, the cylinders there, okay. I try to define them in circles. Okay, this measurement has to be the same their size there, the same size, the same measurement there, okay, to balance them out. Same goes to this one. Okay, balance them out there, guys. That's why when we sketch, we roughly design first those kind of understanding on those kind of structures there first, okay. Of course, when you design the characters, they came with the, for example, these characters, they have around 2.5 head there, okay, to measure the right. But from here, I'm going to design the shapes of these characters first. Okay, I will break down the shapes over here. Okay, the earpiece. Because I don't have any specific kind of ideas right here, okay. So maybe I'm going to design basically those kind of what we call that. Different kind of elements of it, because when we design the characters, there has to be there's going to be a lot of process there, guys, okay. They're not going to be as simple as this one that you saw there, okay, because a lot of people always thought, okay, designing characters is simple, okay. It's depending on what character start that you're going to draw. So right now, take a look here, okay, the rough ideas that came from these subject matters there, okay, based on the same characters, based on the same subject matters there, but I try to deform a little bit there, okay, into more simples and also keep it kind of look and feels there, right, okay. So if you want to look carefully, okay, it's not all about the design yet, but how actually you construct those line efforts in a more proper way there, right, okay. And of course, okay, we go back into the simple kind of shape there, okay. I want to draw a very simple kind of characters like this one there, okay. Okay, roughly there, okay, can you see, okay, how actually I control basically the line itself there, okay. And then from here, I want to break down into multiple kind of shapes, all right. And then whatever I can do from here, all right, I want to break down, okay, the eyes itself. Okay, in different kind of perspective there, right? Even though we're not actually touched the entirely on the perspective there, right, yet. The shape itself, okay, draw the shape there, okay. Look like a baby kind of shapes. But what I want you guys to look at right now, it's not all about how actually I'm going to design them there, okay, but how actually I move my hands to develop that kind of understanding to work with those kind of line work surface. Okay, the line work inside, okay. So develop that kind of structures there first, okay, the right kind of strokes there first to work on that, because a lot of people will draw something like this. Sometimes they're going to start with this kind of drawings there. I don't know why. By right, whatever tools that you're going to use, right, based on the basic structures over here, right, test your alignment there, okay. Sketch, okay, something like this there, okay, or something you can draw, right, okay, in a more kind of simplest way there, okay, to work on that. So all this kind of way of working, you have to practice all the time, okay, to get used to your hands there first. That's why I give this kind of projects and exercise directly at the same times. By using a reference, you guys can learn to break down a bit, and at the same time improve your drawing skills there first, okay. Improve your drawing skill there first. We don't have those specific kind of character that we're going to develop there, right? But we want to develop the kind of understanding how to create the human being, become as a part of the characters there. It doesn't have to be robot, it has to be monster, okay. human being also a characters there, guys. You guys can turn over these characters later on into, for example, like let's just say that you want to turn over this kind of subject matters there into maybe a manga kind of characters there, right? Maybe you want to turn over these kind of characters into manga kind of styles there. Okay, maybe there, right? You guys can do that, okay? But before you're going to turn out this one, right? What you should do first, break down the structures here. Okay? If you have understand how to break down the structure there, guys, easy for you to turn over your kind of reference into the styles that you want to produce. You see the line work that I produced right now there, okay? Using as a part of reference there. Because I didn't actually trace the whole thing, but right, I'm going to use basically the reference that I have, right, to define basically, sorry, right, the right kind of elements there, right? Looks easy basically, okay, if you guys saw how actually I'm going to work on that, all right? But the problem is some of us basically, right, who doesn't have that kind of enough kind of what we call the understanding there, they won't be able to get it right. Okay, they won't be able to get it right there, guys. It's not as easy as they look there, right? Yes, anyone there, right? Ask any question just now? That was an accident. Sorry. Oh. Okay. So guys, okay, remember that, guys, okay? It's not all about the complete works there, okay? Because later on, if you want to, next week, basically, I'm going to show you guys, okay, a certain kind of specific drawing like this one, right? But if you don't have that kind of the right kind of understanding there, okay? If you don't have that kind of understanding to develop your skills from here, right? It will be more difficulty for you guys to develop the right kind of understanding there. Basically, a lot of people always look into the finished work, finished product there, right? They always look into a more finished work, okay? They love and fascinate with that kind of style there, okay? But they don't actually realize and try to understand how we're going to start to draw that kind of styles like this. How basically we're going to start there, okay? So my kind of what we call that suggestions right here is to understand, to have reference, and also to study first a specific way there, okay, to break down the shapes before you're going to develop any single character style that you want there. We study from the real photos, reference that to work first. And one of the most important thing that you have to remember there, okay, how actually you develop the skills first to draw based on the reference that you have. You can suggest that first the rule, okay? That's why we have the progressions here, all right? So on Thursdays, you have our class there, right? I want to see your progressions there, okay? Progressions there first, okay? So if you methods, okay, of your, what we call that drawings are going to be useful for you to work, go ahead there, right? Okay? But before you're going to add those kind of details, even though you have your own kind of styles of working, right? I want to see how you break down into that kind of particular shapes that is, okay? That's how it goes there, guys. All right? Because I don't want you guys to be confused because the rest of you guys will actually still have to develop from basics there, right? I want to see how you break down the shapes there firstly. All right. In our what you call that different kind of practical class, I try to give different kind of methods of workings, okay, in specific kind of what we call that parts of human body there, okay, before we're going to add those kind of details there, right? Okay. But one of the most important thing that we have to understand how we're going to start to draw in the right way all the time there, right? Okay, to develop the kind of confidence of life. I always worried there, okay, for those who actually doesn't submit or doesn't actually write. Keep quiet with all the thing that you've been working on, okay? We're not actually sharing some of the lessons there, okay, or some of the exercise experiment, okay? I'm afraid, okay, some of you guys will not basically really contribute with your kind of discussions. It will give you a little bit kind of loose there, okay, to develop your skill from you, okay? So like Adrena, if you want to show the way that you're going to draw to break down the shapes, you actually can suggest to me there, okay? You can show to me, okay? As usual, okay? Can I actually use this kind of methods to work? So go ahead there, right? Okay. So I know basically some of you guys have that kind of good understanding, okay, on your kind of way to working, okay, but not all of you guys can work independently there, okay? So you have to go through with this specific kind of methods that first works. All right, okay. And of course, the end of the final there, okay, they're going to be different kind of result. Now, each one of you guys will define different kind of result, okay. And if you want to combine basically your kind of submissions with your own styles later on, make sure your styles that you produce are going to be proportionate enough basically, okay, to define the more appealing kind of look of your presentations, okay. But next week I'm going to show you guys some of the way that I'm going to apply those illustration, okay, maybe in different kind of methods, right, different kind of way of working, okay, or different kind of styles that we can actually suggest, okay, not specific, but we can suggest, okay, from anime styles, maybe some simplified styles, okay, stylizations there, okay. I want to give you a bit more options to the rest of you guys, okay, to work on that, okay. So any questions so far? Any questions, guys? At the moment, you can use these two brushes there, all right, to do some sketches there, right? The pencil brushes and also the ultimate brushes there, okay? Sorry, there, okay? Ultimate ink there, okay? Brushes there, okay? But one of the brushes that you might want to, what we call that, try basically the soft round brushes, basically for shadows there. I'm using a lot this kind of brushes for shadowing there, with the shadows there. So for example, here, okay, let's just say, okay, I want to study some of the shadows there, right? I can use these brushes to apply the shadows there, but I can actually adjust the flows. Then I can actually like do some sort of like shadowing kind of techniques there, shading kind of techniques over here. Sometimes I can use this one. Okay, I use a lot of these brushes basically to show some students basically how to work with the shadows kind of shapes there. Okay, I'm changing flows, but not the opacities there. Okay, to apply, okay, very light kind of shadows there. I don't want to do a bit more like a heavy kind of shadowing kind of styles there yet, right? So take a look here, shadows line. It's very nice there, okay, very nice there. It will give you a bit kind of form, okay, of your structures itself, right? But the light, the directions of light also really important, guys. Okay, right now the light came from over here, right? So most of the shadows are going to be fall off to this right side. Okay, the left side light, what we call that, we define what we call that, the shadows that are the light there, okay, the light sources there. Okay. The difference, okay, when you use the soft kind of what we call that pressure soft brushes that works on the shadows there. Other than we use the normal kind of brushes that we use to draw there, right? Okay, can be. Any questions? This one basically, I think, or next week, I'm going to show a bit more further there, okay, on the shadows there. Any questions? Any questions, guys? No? Do we need to record video for this assignment? Of course, they're right. Especially when you draw them. Right? Especially when you draw them, they're right. I want to see how actually you move your hand to develop the kind of structures there. The basic structures line there, right? Okay. So if there are any questions, thank you very much, guys. Okay. I'm going to take a look on those attendance later on. All right. So far, basically, okay, I'm going to check back again those attendance over here. All right. But the rest of you guys were not here. Basically, I'm going to what we call that take back again. All right. And if you don't have any questions, thank you very much, guys, okay, for having me today. And of course, there, okay, see you guys later on in our sessions, our practical sessions. Right. We're going to start basically our group 5 kind of recorder sessions around, I'm going to give you guys around 15 minutes. All right, 12:15, we're going to start our class there, right? Okay, so you guys can take a break first. Okay, take a break. You're going to have a quick lunch. It's okay. It's good, right? Okay, and thank you very much, guys, for having me today. All right, and I will upload and update with you guys more and more, okay, on our lessons, okay? And see you guys later on. And we're going to use another link. This is the link. I think this is the link that we're going to use here. This is the link that I'm going to use here, okay, for recording sessions. All right. So for our group 5,